Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There is no relationship more sacred, no bond more powerful, no connection more essential than the one you have with yourself. You've been taught to chase love, to look for it in someone's eyes, to find it in their arms, to beg for it with effort, to measure your worth by who stays, who chooses you, and who claps for you. But let me ask you this. Have you ever stood in front of the mirror, looked yourself dead in the eye and said, I love you for real this time? You see, everybody wants to be chosen. Everybody wants to be seen. But the truth is, if you don't choose yourself first, you'll always hand your heart to people who were never qualified to carry it. You want to build a relationship? Start with the one you've been avoiding, the one with your soul. We romanticize struggle, call it ride or die. We stay in situations that break us and call it loyalty. We tell ourselves love means sacrifice, but who told you that sacrifice was supposed to be self-erasure? Who told you that loving someone else meant abandoning you? Let me tell you what I've learned. You are not here to prove your worth through suffering. You're not here to earn someone's crumbs. You are the whole table, the chair, the room, the house. You've been asking for love. But let me ask you, can you sit with yourself in silence? Can you hold your own hand when anxiety grips you in the dark? Can you whisper to your heart, I'm not leaving, even when it feels like the world already has? Because until you become your first love, every other relationship will just be a reflection of your inner abandonment. You teach people how to love you by how you love yourself. If you tolerate disrespect from you, you'll tolerate it from others. If you constantly criticize yourself, you'll believe others when they do too. If you ignore your needs, others will ignore them too. Not because they're evil, but because you told them you're not a priority. You modeled it for them. You're walking around begging for loyalty, but you won't even stay loyal to your own boundaries. You're asking for someone to choose you, but you've been rejecting yourself for years. You want someone to show up for you, but where are you when you're falling apart? You see, love isn't something you find. Love is something you remember because it was in you from the start, before the world told you what you had to be, before the heartbreaks, before the rejection, before the betrayals, before the trauma. You were love. You are love. And if you've forgotten, it's time to return. But returning to self-love is not always pretty. It's not bubble baths and affirmation playlists. Sometimes it's screaming into a pillow at 2 a.m. Sometimes it's canceling the plans because your soul is tired. Sometimes it's walking away from the person who gave you butterflies but took away your peace. Sometimes it's admitting that you've been the one abandoning you, and that has to stop now. Loving yourself means choosing truth over comfort, healing over performing, boundaries over approval, and growth over guilt. You're not here to babysit someone's potential. You're not here to prove that you're lovable by fixing broken people. You're not here to perform likability just to feel safe. That's not love. That's survival. And it's time to stop surviving and start living. You've been so focused on being enough for others that you forgot you were born enough. You don't earn your value. You awaken too. I know some of you are thinking, but what if I love myself and still end up alone? Let me tell you something. Alone and at peace is better than together and in pieces. Alone with dignity is better than attached with desperation. Alone in purpose is better than lost in pretense. You were not designed to shrink. You were not built to bend yourself into someone else's fantasy. You were made to stand tall in your truth. And when you do, the right people don't run. They recognize you. Because when you become your first love, you stop chasing people. You start attracting equals. You want a love that lasts. Start with the one that never left, the one that's always been waiting for you to come home to yourself. People think self-love is selfish. They're wrong. It's foundational. You can't pour into someone else's cup from an empty one. You can't build with someone when your own house is on fire. You can't nurture another soul while yours is starving. When you love yourself, really love yourself, you show up in relationships differently. You don't need them to complete you. You meet them as a whole person, not a half. And from that place, love becomes freedom, not a prison. You don't play games. You communicate. You don't manipulate. You tell the truth. You don't fear rejection because you know rejection isn't always loss. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's redirection. Listen, becoming your first love doesn't mean you won't have moments of doubt. It means in those moments, you won't abandon yourself again. It means when people walk out, you don't walk out on you too. It means when you fall, you don't shame yourself. You lift yourself with compassion. It means you stop outsourcing your confidence to someone else's validation. You stop needing applause to feel worthy. You stop begging for closure from people who were never open in the first place. Self-love is not arrogance. It's not pride. It's not vanity. It's quiet strength. It's radical honesty. It's deep acceptance. It's the audacity to say, I will not betray myself again. And let me say this clearly. When you become your first love, you raise your standards and you won't feel guilty about it. You stop entertaining half-love, broken promises, and emotional laziness. You stop giving access to people who only show up when it's convenient. You stop explaining why you require respect. You just require it because when you love yourself, you protect your peace like it's gold. You guard your time like it's sacred. You invest in your growth like it's non-negotiable. And you treat your heart like a treasure, not a discount item on someone's emotional clearance rack. There is power in being whole before your health. There is strength in walking away from what doesn't honor you. There is freedom in knowing that even if everyone leaves, you've already found your forever in you. So take yourself out to dinner, look in the mirror and smile, speak life into your dream, apologize to yourself for the times you gave love that you never gave inward, and then forgive yourself. Forgive the past version of you that didn't know better. She was doing her best. He was surviving. Now it's time to thrive. You were not created to live life on someone else's terms. You are not meant to chase, beg, perform, or pretend. You were made to stand in your full truth, with your chest out and your heart wide open to say, this is who I am. This is what I need. And I will no longer betray myself just to belong. Because once you become your first love, you set a tone that no one else can lower. And from that place, real love can find you. Not the love you have to shrink for. Not the love you have to beg for. Not the love you have to chase, fix, or survive. But the love that meets you as an equal, because you've already met yourself. So stand up, hold your head high, and walk like someone who's finally come home. Because you have. Welcome back. Let me tell you something else. When you finally choose yourself, you stop being available to the versions of love that insult your spirit. You stop negotiating with people who can't meet you where you are. You stop watering dead plants, hoping they bloom out of guilt, history, or hope. Instead, you start planting seeds in your own soil. And this time you protect it. You don't let just anybody walk through your garden with muddy feet. There is a sacredness to self-love that no one talks about. It sharpens your instincts. You start hearing the unspoken. You feel the shift in energy. You see behind the smiles. And you no longer lie to yourself just to keep company. You'd rather be honest and alone than surrounded and hollow. That's what happens when your spirit becomes your compass. You stop needing proof to leave where peace doesn't live. You learn the art of the pause. Not every invitation deserves your RSVP. Not every person who wants you deserves access. And not every apology deserves your return. Because love isn't about proximity. It's about alignment. You can be standing next to someone and still feel unseen. You can be in bed with someone and still feel alone. But when you've become your first love, you don't fear solitude. You fear self-betrayal. Let that sink in. You don't chase vibes. You choose values. You don't beg for reassurance. You become, and you don't wait for someone to see your light. You walk in it. There's a moment in every person's life where they hit an emotional rock bottom. Not always loud, not always public, but something breaks. The pretending, the performing, the pleasing, the waiting. And in that quiet collapse, something powerful is born. The version of you that says never again. Not out of bitterness, but from clarity. You realize that loving yourself isn't a trend, it's survival. It's oxygen. It's the foundation on which every other love will stand or crumble. And here's the truth most won't tell you. Healing yourself will make you outgrow people. It will make you outgrow conversations, tolerances, environments, and sometimes entire versions of your past identity. You will be misunderstood. You will be called distant. You will lose things, but none of it will compare to what you gain, your peace, your standards, your power. See, it's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear, crystal clear on what love is and what it's not. Love is not confusion. Love is not emotional gymnastics. Love is not earned by proving, overextending, or sacrificing your self-worth. Love is clarity, commitment, care, and consistency. And until you give that to yourself, you'll keep mistaking chaos for chemistry. But not anymore, not this season. This season is about being so in tune with yourself that you become non-reactive to anything that doesn't serve your growth. You don't chase closure, you become it. You don't beg for attention, you magnetize respect. Because when you become your first love, you stop proving, you start embodying. You embody grace. You embody self-respect. You embody high standards, not because you're difficult, but because you spent too long living small and you're done with that chapter. People will call you intimidating. What they call intimidating is just someone who finally knows their worth and is done renting space to people who bring chaos instead of clarity. You're not hard to love. You were just trying to be loved in places you were meant to learn from, not live in. And now you're moving different. You don't explain your growth. You don't justify your glow. You let your healed energy speak for itself. Because peace is loud in its own way, not through noise, but through its undeniable presence. There's a confidence that comes when you've been broken and still chose to love yourself harder. Not with conditions, not with ego, but with reverence, with patience, with the kind of compassion you once gave away too easily. And that confidence is attractive, it's unshakable, it's magnetic. Not because you're perfect, but because you're whole. And wholeness doesn't beg, wholeness doesn't force, wholeness doesn't shrink or overcompensate. It just is. That's the kind of presence that builds healthy relationships, not dependency, but duality. Not I need you to make me feel complete, but I am complete. And I'd love to grow with someone who respects that. When you become your first love, you stop asking, what do I need to do to be loved? And start asking, does this love match the way I now love myself? That shift changes everything. You stop tolerating mood swings dressed up as passion. You stop celebrating crumbs disguised as effort. You stop accepting apologies without changed behavior because you now know you are the home, not the guest. You are the standard, not the exception. You are the one you've been waiting for, the one who wipes your own tears and keeps walking, the one who speaks life over yourself when no one else claps, the one who holds your hand and says, I'm not giving up on you. That version of you, that's your first love. So protect your peace like it's sacred. Protect your growth like it's gold. Protect your heart, not with walls, but with wisdom. You don't need everyone to love you. You need you to love you fiercely, unapologetically, fully. Because when that love is rooted deep, you don't bend for storms. You rise through them. You evolve. The moment you stop begging for connection is the moment you begin attracting alignment, because the frequency of your life rises when the relationship with yourself deepens. You're no longer sending out signals of desperation. You're broadcasting stability, groundedness. You don't ask to be rescued anymore. You've already saved yourself. And when you become your own hero, your own comforter, your own witness, you gain the superpower of discernment. You no longer confuse shared history with healthy connection. You don't keep people in your life out of obligation or time served. You recognize that just because someone walked with you once doesn't mean they're meant to walk with you forever. Attachment fades where authenticity grows. You start to feel when the energy isn't right, not because you're paranoid, but because peace has become your standard. And anything that threatens that peace is no longer worth your time, no matter how long they've known your name, because love isn't about longevity. It's about honesty. It's about effort. It's about the small things that echo loudly: consistency, accountability, presence. And when you master those within yourself, you no longer tolerate their absence from others. That's what happens when you're full from within. You're no longer hungry for the hollow. You move like someone who remembers what it took to rebuild. You honor the lessons that cost you your innocence, your time, your tears, and you refuse to betray the version of you who had to carry the pain in silence just to make it through. That's self-honoring. That's your new future. You stop apologizing for having high standards because you paid for those standards with suffering. You bought your clarity with confusion. You earned your discernment through disillusionment. And now you don't lower your requirements just because someone else isn't ready to ride. Instead, you bless them and move forward, because not every loss is a tragedy. Sometimes it's a return to self. Sometimes the person who walks away is the answer to a prayer you were too afraid to speak. You see, when you become your first love, you shift your definition of love itself. It's no longer grand gestures and emotional fireworks. It's steady presence. It's the voice that says, "You are safe with me," and backs it up every time. It's the quiet kind of love that doesn't shout, doesn't flaunt, doesn't fake. That's the love you cultivate when you've sat with your brokenness and turned it into wisdom. When you've poured into your wounds, not just bandages, but belief. When you've grown roots so deep that no temporary affection can shake your foundation. It's no longer about being wanted. It's about being valued. And here's something most people won't admit. Being deeply loved by someone else is beautiful, but being deeply respected by yourself, that's where the magic lives. You stop settling. When you respect yourself, you stop explaining your worth. You stop sacrificing your joy to be palatable, to be digestible, to be liked, because you weren't made to be swallowed. You were made to be seen. You were made to take up space, to be bold in your boundaries, to be unshakable in your self-worth, to be magnetic in your authenticity. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. And aligned people don't chase, they attract. They attract opportunities, not just out of ambition, but from integrity. They attract partners, not out of scarcity, but shared vision. They attract friendships, not for convenience, but for spiritual nourishment. Because when you're your own first love, your presence becomes a filter. It repels what no longer serves and magnetizes what mirrors your inner truth. You no longer fear solitude, because your solitude is sacred now. You've built rituals around it. You've learned how to fill your own cup. You've become so emotionally full that anything less than reciprocity feels foreign. And in that fullness, you don't entertain what drains you. You bless it, thank it for the lesson, and let it go. Not because you're cold, but because your peace is now non-negotiable. Let others call it selfish. You'll call it strategy. Because the fastest way to destroy your destiny is to tie it to people who never respected your work. And the fastest way to accelerate your growth is to protect your energy like it's your last dollar. You've wasted enough years hoping people would change. Now you change your proximity. You elevate your circle. You sharpen your standards. You challenge your inner critic. You choose partners who see your soul before your shape. Friends who feed your purpose, not just your past. Environments that cultivate your vision, not just tolerate your presence. You don't explain that anymore. You live it. You embody grace with grit, softness with strength, vulnerability with standards. And when they say you've changed, you say, yes, that was the whole point. Because change didn't happen by accident. It happened through fire, through falling, through crawling out of places you never told anyone you were in, through forgiving what never apologized, through letting go of hands that felt familiar but held you hostage. That change, it's holy, it's earned, and now it's permanent. You don't go back to who you were, you build on who you've become, because now your love is not up for debate, it's not up for auction, it's not up for negotiation. You don't love to be chosen anymore, you love to be whole, and that changes everything. You've realized that your identity is not defined by who stays. It's revealed by who you are when no one's watching. And now you move from a place of clarity, not approval. You're no longer performing to be liked. You're showing up as you are and letting what aligns stay and what doesn't walk. Because here's the truth. When you've built something sacred within, silence doesn't scare you. Loneliness doesn't define you. And rejection doesn't wound you. It simply redirects you to where your energy will be received, not just used. You're no longer waiting for permission to shine. You've learned that dimming your light never saved anyone. It only made you forget your brilliance. And now you refuse to hide. You walk into rooms not asking if you belong, but anchoring yourself in the fact that you do. The room is lucky to have you because when you know your value, you stop negotiating your worth. You no longer feel the need to defend your standards. People who are meant for you will never ask you to dilute them. You are done fitting into spaces that shrink you. You are done translating your spirit into something digestible for people who were never meant to understand you. You are done waiting for someone else to tell you that you're enough because you've already told yourself, and this time you believed it. You carry yourself differently when you believe in your own voice. You speak without hesitation. You stand with quiet certainty. You love without desperation. And you walk away without drama. This kind of self-possession is rare, and that's why it's powerful. You've become the kind of person who doesn't beg for time, doesn't beg for effort, doesn't beg for consistency. You simply observe and you decide. Because your peace is now your compass. And if something disrupts it, you don't fix it, you release it. Not from bitterness, but from wisdom. You've stopped confusing intensity with intimacy. You've stopped labeling emotional roller coasters as passion. You've stopped glorifying pain as proof of love. Now love feels like ease, like trust, like home. And if it doesn't feel like home, you don't stay. You've trained yourself to listen, not just to what people say, but to what their actions confirm. You don't overextend. You don't assume. You observe. You no longer fill in the blanks with fantasy. You deal with reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. That's maturity. And with maturity comes discipline. The discipline to leave the table when love is no longer being served. The discipline to choose healing over history. The discipline to honor red flags the first time, not after they break you. You know now that someone who truly loves you will never put you in a position to betray yourself just to keep them. You know now that love doesn't demand your silence, your shape-shifting, or your self-abandonment. And you know now that when love is real, it builds, it doesn't break. So you've stopped making excuses for people who only show up when they need something. You've stopped reaching out just to feel connection. You've stopped chasing closure in places where only chaos lives. Because when you became your first love, you became your last apology. You no longer apologize for having needs, for having boundaries, for being too much or not enough. You've stopped shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's small vision. You've stopped hiding your opinions to keep the peace. You've stopped carrying relationships on your back just to avoid conflict. Now you know the difference between effort and emotional labor. You know the difference between love and obligation. And you know the difference between someone choosing you and someone using you. And you don't confuse the two anymore. You show up as you are. No masks, no filters, no performance. And you're okay if that's too much for some because it will always be just right for the people who are meant to walk beside you. That's what alignment feels like. No proving, no pleasing, just peace. You're not interested in superficial anymore. You're not entertained by potential. You want presence. You want character. You want people who match your energy, not drain it. You've lost too much time in places that starved your soul. Now you protect your time like it's treasure. You protect your mind like it's soil. You protect your love like it's legacy, because it is. Your love is generational. It is transformative. It is real, and you will no longer offer it at a discount. You've reclaimed your power, the power to walk away from what doesn't align, the power to speak your truth without trembling, the power to love without losing yourself. That power doesn't make you hard, it makes you clear. Clarity is your new compass. And with that clarity, you've learned to lead yourself with grace, with wisdom, and with unwavering dignity. You are no longer the person waiting for life to happen. You create it, you direct it, you embody it, because you are not a victim of your past. You are the architect of your future, and you've decided that your foundation will be built on love that's rooted in self-respect, not self-sacrifice. You've stopped looking backward, trying to make sense of the pain. You've harvested the lessons, buried the shame, and planted something stronger. Now you rise, now you speak, now you love fully, fiercely, and without apology, because now you've come home, and this time, you're not leaving. You've reached the point where silence has become your sanctuary, not your punishment, where solitude feels like strength, not scarcity. You no longer fear being alone with your thoughts because now those thoughts carry clarity. They echo truth. They affirm your worth without needing external confirmation. Your joy is no longer reactive. It's not tied to someone texting back, showing up, or validating your existence. You've cultivated joy like a garden, intentional, consistent, protect. Not every season will bloom, but your roots are deep, and that depth, that's what keeps you grounded when storms come. No longer do you decorate red flags with optimism. You don't romanticize dysfunction. You see it, name it, and walk the other way without guilt, because guilt has lost its grip on you. It used to control your choices, make you question your needs, your voice, your instincts. Not anymore. You've outgrown that manipulation. Your emotions are no longer liabilities. They are your compass. You don't suppress what you feel to keep others comfortable. You've stopped swallowing your truth. You've stopped whispering when your soul wants to roar. This journey has demanded that you unlearn so much. You had to unlearn that love must hurt. Unlearn that loyalty means tolerating harm. Unlearn that your value is tied to someone choosing you. Now your very presence is a boundary. You walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere, not because you're loud, but because your energy speaks first. It says, I've done the work. It says, I'm no longer available for disrespect, dishonesty, or disconnection. It says, I don't need attention. I bring alignment. People can feel it. You've become a mirror. Some will be inspired. Some will be intimidated. That's not your burden. Your only job is to stay true. You are no longer in competition with anyone. Not for love, not for space, not for success. You understand now that what's meant for you doesn't require you to rush, to beg, to chase. It flows, it fits, it comes without force. That's not luck, that's alignment. And now you seek more than chemistry. You seek compatibility. You don't fall for charisma. You look for character. You don't get caught in charm. You discern intention, because surface impressions no longer fool you. You've trained your spirit to look deep. Your peace has taught you how to wait. You're not impressed by flashes. You're drawn to steadiness, to the kind of presence that doesn't fluctuate, to the people who don't leave you guessing, because you've had enough confusion to last a lifetime. Now it's about clarity. You're not looking for rescue. You're looking for reciprocity. You're not hoping someone will finally see you. You're choosing people who already do, who meet you at the level you've met yourself. You used to over-explain, over-function, overextend. Now you simply observe. And when something doesn't feel right, you don't try to fix it. You don't try to earn your way into someone's heart. You understand now the people who are right for you won't require you to shrink, to suffer, or to beg. They'll honor the love you've built within. They'll see the investment you've made in yourself and match it, not drain it. You've become a person who loves with discernment. You don't throw your heart into unsafe hands. You don't ignore misalignment in the name of potential. You've learned that the most expensive thing you can offer anyone is your time, and now you spend it with intention. Your presence is earned, not owed. You no longer fear walking away because you know you carry home within you You've created a life you don't need to escape from, a mind you trust, a soul you listen to. This is what becoming your first love looks like. You become a sanctuary, not a battlefield. The war inside you is over. You've disarmed your inner critic. You've retired the version of you that confused struggle with significance. You've replaced the old soundtrack of self-doubt with a new rhythm, one that sings of self-trust, self-respect, and unwavering self-worth. And now you protect it. Because you know how costly it is to betray yourself. You remember how long it took to rebuild? You haven't forgotten the nights you cried into silence, the days you questioned your value, the moments you handed your joy to people who didn't know what to do with it. Never again. Now you walk with intentional softness, not weakness, but the kind of strength that doesn't need to scream. You're not trying to be everything for everyone anymore. You're being everything for you. And in doing so, you give others permission to rise too, to love themselves without apology, to set standards without guilt, to walk away from chaos without shame. You've become a walking testimony, not because life has been easy, but because you chose to heal where others hardened. You chose to evolve instead of escape. You chose to rise when it would have been easier to retreat. You've earned your peace, and now it's non-negotiable. Your love is no longer impulsive. It's intentional. It's not scattered. It's sacred. It's not desperate. It's deeply rooted. You love slowly now, not because you're afraid, but because you're wise. You take your time. You watch. You listen. You feel. You don't ignore signs. You don't bypass truth. Because now you understand you can love someone and still choose yourself. That's the most radical love of all. The kind that doesn't need to prove, perform, or pretend. The kind that says, even when I love you, I won't abandon me. This isn't about perfection. It never was. It's about devotion to your values, to your growth, to the sacred responsibility of being in relationship with yourself first. You've rewritten the story. You are no longer the character waiting to be saved. You are the author. And in this chapter, you are seen, not just for what you give others, but for who you are. You are held not by fragile hands, but by the strength you've built within. You are loved, not for who people want you to be, but for who you finally became when you stopped running from yourself. And no matter what happens next, one thing is clear. You'll never be a stranger to your own heart again.